I think it narrows down fast, and also that's just a function of money. That they're not going to have the money to pay for the plane tickets to get to the places they need to be and put on their, political events. Huckabee winning South Carolina, that might be a new infusion of money. Florida does have an evangelical community as well that he can go tap into. South Carolina is Fred Thompson's, last stand. If he doesn't win South Carolina, I don't see him. He has to
do what Romney did in Michigan.
He's got to pull that out of the hat. I also think for John Edwards that South Carolina actually could be, if he comes in third again, that South Carolina could be a good place for him to make his graceful exit. His home state. What
do the independents mean?
What does that mean?
Well, what do the independents mean to the Republican ticket, or even the, it was interesting. I think it wasn't Hillary running alone in Michigan,
yes.
And I think that the independents were a considerable number of the vote. That she got 60%, but that the independents were 40% or something like that. And then even in New Hampshire, that there was some thought that independents helped McCain to win. Are the independents going to become a larger part of the story as it goes forward? And if it does end up with candidates like, let's say if it's Hillary and Giuliani, and it's thought to be they're thought to be divisive candidates, do you see a role for a third party coming in that sucks up some of that independent fervor?
Well, to answer the first question, I think independents are actually become less of a story in Republican primaries because you'll be going to closed primaries now. I actually wrote this for CNN that if McCain had won last night, he would have basically changed the entire calculus of how a Republican wins in a primary. That he would have won with moderate Republicans, independents, and a sprinkling of Democrats, which is, no one saw that strategy coming, but he didn't. And so it turned out that independents were not going to, push
so their
McCain
moment
over the
is
edge.
coming to an end.
Among Republicans,
Among
I would
Republicans,
say so.
but not Democrats.
But in a general election,
yeah, that's what I'm.
I don't see the Republican Party letting another third candidate put another Clinton in the White House. Thank you, Ross Perot. I would think there would be a ton of pressure to keep that third candidate out, that it would be seen as draining votes from the Republican.
Now, these past few days, all this contentiousness and ugliness in the Democrats, all eating each other alive. How did you view that? How did you view the whole race-gender mess that was going on?
Well, I don't believe that Hillary Clinton is racist, but I do believe she was making some very odd and I don't think very well thought out historical comparisons when she said she was LBJ to Obama's Martin Luther King, and that Martin Luther King needed an LBJ to pass civil rights legislation. And I was like, well, of course he did. A black man couldn't be elected president in 1964. It was just a very strange thing. So is she suggesting that in 2008 that a black candidate should sort of remain in the role of moral leader and uplifter and inspirer while she does the real work of legislation? I thought that was really strange and not very well thought out. I also saw that an aide of hers told The Guardian that if you really had real political, social concerns, you would vote for Hillary. But if you wanted to have a hip, imaginary black friend, you'd vote for Barack.
What age was that? I wonder.
He was smart enough to go unnamed. And then you have, Bill Shaheen's comments in New Hampshire about the cocaine, and then you had Bob Kerrey with the Hussein business. I think it's been
what seemed the most troubling of the whole episode, I thought, was both Bill Clinton's remarks, because he's not really running, but even more so your former employer, Bob Johnson. His comments about Obama, which I'm sure you heard, but where he made a sort of sly little reference to, and I'm not going to talk about what Barack was doing, but he mentioned in his book. And then later when he was put on the spot, he said, when I was actually referring to his community activism.
Right, because that seems so obvious to everyone.
Did this surprise you out of Bob Johnson? Is he given to
being
being used that way?
Or something
Well, but is he given to being a Clinton tool? That absolutely.
No, and I think...
Because the blowback was on him. It really wasn't. I mean,
Well, it was
Hillary
also
sort of
on
washed
Clinton,
her hands
who went
of
on
it.
black radio saying, "Oh, he meant civil." Or,
Yeah. But it was Bob Johnson looked like he was, just.
I think that it was
a
really
puppet.
just political sort of
Yeah,
inexperience of being on stage like that he got caught up in the moment. I think, and he was trying to help the
But
Clintons.
isn't these subjects sensitive enough? Women, race, gender, race, that if people don't watch themselves, it is they are going to get caught up. I mean, do you believe that the race issue has been sufficiently done with now? Because they said last night we're not going to do this anymore. Do you believe that? That it won't
No.
come up again? Exactly. Well, see, I don't believe it either, and I don't believe that gender won't come up again. It's just that gender's a card that's being played in a different way. Race is being played as if, well, we'll put race on the table, and therefore you will think of him as a black man.
Right.
Whereas gender's being played as, well, you have to feel sorry for women.
To soften Hillary's.
Yeah, women need to be felt sorry for, and then you vote for them on that basis. It's interesting the way those two things are being played out there.
Yeah.
How do you view that?
Well, I love showers because that's where you get to think about stuff. And so this morning in the shower,
Nice image, Amy.
Sorry, but I was thinking in the shower this morning that all this focus on race at a certain, I don't think the Clintons are necessarily this clever, but it took attention off of
Amy.
Hillary's man problem, and not the one she's married to, the white male problem that Hillary has. And so focusing on Barack and race has kept the media from looking at the problem that she has in terms of electability.
Yeah.
That we saw in Iowa and New Hampshire, that white male Democrats went more for Barack Obama. And so Hillary's not even appealing within her own party to that demographic, let alone in a general. So I think in terms of gender issues, that will become very interesting.
Do you think that Hillary Clinton's candidacy as a woman, means as much to women as Barack Obama as a black means to blacks? No. Break it down for me.
Break it down for me.
You can do it.
No, and we saw in Iowa that Barack Obama got more women to support him than Hillary. Women have never been the political monolith that we had in the 90s, the feminists telling us that we were, that we saw married women tend to be more conservative, more willing to vote for Republicans than young single women. I think there's some obvious reasons for that the Democratic Party, being more of a pro-choice party, appeals to young single women who tend to be more pro-choice. So no, I never thought that Hillary's appeal as a woman was going to be more important than Barack Obama's appeal as a really revolutionary figure in race politics.
Do you think that he can get blacks to vote for him no matter what?
Not no matter what, and we saw that leading into the primaries, the black community, being somewhat cautious, somewhat concerned about his electability, and he wasn't getting that support. I talked about this with Donna Brazil, before the first votes were cast, and how she was on radio shows and black callers would call in, asking, but can Barack win? Why should I waste my vote? And that gets back again to, the Clinton camp raising his race issue as is in a way to depress black turnout for Barack Obama, raise questions about electability, and therefore,
Well, you know how to advise
black
senators. So how would you advise him to go forward now to kind of keep a hold on the black vote? I mean, how, to keep that base and expand his base in every way that he needs to. How would you advise him?
Well, I think he needs to keep doing what he's doing. It's working.
Do you think he's strong enough?
Oh, absolutely.
Up against the Clintons?
Oh, yes, he's demonstrating an amazing resiliency, and that he has, for the most part, not gotten down into the mud. I think the Clintons were also trying to bait him. They were trying to turn him into a Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton figure, who would be such a turnoff to moderate white voters.
Yeah.
And he's managed to stay above the fray, and he's been able to garner black support, but by still being everyone's candidate. And I think it's been brilliant, and I really applaud him for that.
What would you think a Giuliani-Obama race would be like?
Ooh.
And where do you think your heart would go?
That would be tough. It would be really, really tough.